unashamedly talk about what I've been through. And I know it works, because I've had veterans come up to me after I've gone out there and done public speaking events, where they came up to me and said, hey, because you were up there talking, made me go get help. And that's the power of telling our stories. Jared, man, it's all you, man.
George, is this gonna be available?
We're recording it, so, yes.
Will the slides be available?
I can put out the slides to anybody.
Okay.
Sweet, thank you. Yeah, so really, I've been on this side of things for 6 years now, 5, 6 years now, doing on this side. The most effective tool that we have in our arsenal as veterans or first responders who struggle with PTSD or suicidal ideation or suicide attempts is your story. Because we don't listen to anybody else. We just listen to us. If you haven't walked in our shoes, we're not gonna give you the time of day, which is part of the problem is that some counseling doesn't work so well. Because you don't respect the counselors when they walked in your shoes. I'm one of the peacetime service members. So I was in the Marine Corps between 1997 and 2001. I got out 4 months before the towers fell. So I was home. I was actually, and I'd separated a couple months early on leave. So I was already home and I was employed working as a police officer for Kimberly PD, working night shift and going to school during the day. And I actually got called back. I got re-upped. And my wife was pregnant with our firstborn child, and she's type 1 diabetic. It was a high-risk pregnancy, so I asked for an extension, not to get out of my orders, just an extension, so that I could be there for the birth of my son, and it was granted. They gave me an extra 4 months, I think. Before I could ship out the second time, they canceled my orders, because I'd had so many guys re-up in the stop loss, they didn't need me anymore. And I carried the guilt of that for so long. Because I didn't go, right? Like I got orders, I was supposed to go, and I didn't. And somebody else might have died in my place, right? And I carried that for years. As silly as it is, right? I carried that. It was part of my problem. So I worked as a police officer for 16 years. After 4 years in the Marine Corps during peacetime. Lots of trauma, seeing that stuff over and over again. What I didn't realize back then was that we're unique in the way that we think and see the world, veterans, first responders. Like, it's a very small percentage of us that serve, very, very small of the general population. We think differently. And for a lot of us, it starts when we're little, right? We run towards danger, not away from it. You've heard fight, flight, or freeze, right? We're fight, most of the time we're a fight. Most of the population doesn't like us. So 16 years law enforcement, lots of trauma through there. Same mentality though as the Marine Corps. We don't talk about it. No matter how traumatic the call was, we go on to the next one. It's your job. If you don't do it, who's gonna do it? And for a lot of the agencies, like working at Kimberly, it was just me. The only cop in town. Working for Twin Falls PD, there was 4 of us working the entire city. You go down, or you're not there, who's gonna pick up the slack? So I always go to work. And then Nampa PD, I worked there. That was the longest stint that I did. The last 5 or 6 years, I'll try to make this quick, but the last 5 or 6 years of my career, I had 4 shoulder surgeries and menectomies. And the only reason I say that is because it gave me access to opiates. Because I was getting them from doctors. And it was in the middle of the opiate epidemic where they were prescribing them like candy. So I was getting a massive amount of opiates. And what I learned now, what I know now is, I was using those opiates to numb out emotional pain from complex PTS. That was my treatment. That was my plan. That's how I dealt with it, all the trauma. Instead of talking about it, seeking out help, any of that, I numbed it out. I just took pills. And then it would shut this off. And then I have to live in that Rolodex of trauma, right? That some of you may be familiar with. So I got addicted to opiates. I disconnected from my wife, disconnected from my kids. I basically went to work, and then I'd come home and veg out in front of a TV screen, turn this off, and use opiates and drink whiskey. And in 2017, the last part of my life to fall apart was work, because it was the last thing that I gave a shit about. fed that adrenaline rush, and it also fed my ego, because I got to be in charge, right? Didn't know it at the time, but eventually it got to the point where I didn't want to go to work. Like, I hated people, I didn't want to be in public, I wanted to just veg out at home, isolate, and talk to nobody, get high and drunk. That was what I wanted to do. And I didn't, and I hated myself for it. So my job performance started to suffer, and I got wind that the department was gonna look into my behavior and I was gonna get fired. And I have one set of skills, right? I can't do anything else. The only thing that could save my job was if I called the EAP line and told them that I had a problem with alcohol and drugs. So I swallowed my ego to save my job, and I called the EAP line and told them that I'm addicted to drugs. Their response to that, to get me help, was to send me to a 28-day rehab program. And they did. They whisked me away to North Point for 28 days. They told nobody at the PD where I went. I just disappeared for 28 days. Because why? We don't talk about it, right? Part of that stigma, we don't talk about it. So I was in there for 28 days. I learned a shit ton about addiction, but every time the counselor started to talk about PTSD, I'd threaten to walk out. Because you can't write that down on my paperwork. I'll lose my job, and I have one set of skills. So I went through all 28 days, learned a bunch about addiction. We didn't touch the root of the problem. Addiction was not my problem. Drugs and alcohol were not my problem. They were the solution to my problem. My problem was complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and I was not dealing with it. So, get out of rehab, I think I made it a day, maybe. I had a prescription waiting for me at the VA when I got out. So I went and filled that. They put me on day shift. I was taking UAs twice a week. Make sure that I was still clean and sober while I was working. I was cheating. I had my teenage boys peeing in a bottle for me, which I was taking to work and cheating UAs. And I was using opiates pretty heavily, but I was down to one doctor now, because they were watching me super close. They couldn't track the Fed system. They could track the civilian side of things, so I couldn't get a prescription from any other doctor. So I literally was taking what I could off the street and down to one doc in March of 2018. Now, mind you, this entire time I'm still checked out as a dad and a husband. My wife and I were basically roommates. Wasn't physically abusive, mostly, but I was verbally abusive. I was emotionally abusive. My oldest son was 15 at the time, I believe. One night, when it all came to a head, him and my wife are having a shouting match back and forth at each other. Now, I'm 2 weeks from a refill. I'm down to one doc, so I'm going through withdrawals, opiate withdrawals, and drinking whiskey, trying to stave off that, vegging out in front of the TV and checked out. So they start bickering back and forth. I just go upstairs to bed because I'm not dealing with that. And it wasn't too much longer that she burst through the bedroom door, bawling hysterically, like hyperventilating, bawling. I need you is all she could get out. I need you, I need you, I need you. And my response to her was not empathy, not sympathy, was, you're his mother. I don't give a shit what you're fighting about. Get out of my room. And she tells me, he has locked himself in his bedroom with your pistol, and I can't get to him. I need you. And I'd had a couple of friends we worked with that had buried their oldest teenage sons to suicide. I'd responded to one of the calls. My immediate thought was, that is not happening to me. I'm not gonna be that dad. So I jump out of bed and I force my way into the room and I take that pistol away from him and I give him a full dose of man up and rub some dirt on the kid. Why are you trying to take the easy way out? Macho bullshit, because I didn't know any better. And I sat in front of his door that night and came up with this plan that I would call Ada County and report my meds stolen so that I could get opiates in me that day, the next morning, as quickly as possible, so that I could deal with this ball of emotion that was going on in my house. Never addressed the suicide attempt with my son. Never had a heart-to-heart with him. My boy, like my reason for living, and I had none of that. I was numb to all of it. So the next morning I did that. And thank God for me and my family that a detective was covering calls that day. And he showed up at my house instead of taking a phone report and sending it to file with no suspects. He started doing some digging and found out I was full of shit. Called my department, pretty sure he called my department, let them know, hey, one of your guys has a problem with opiates. You can only imagine what their response was. Yeah, we know, he just got out of rehab. So they called a prosecutor, woke up a judge, walked a warrant through, It was like a morning or two later, I got called in for an internal investigations interview in my own department. At the end of that interview, after I lied about everything that happened, they arrested me. I got arrested in my own department. They put handcuffs on me, they searched me, they perp walked me to a patrol car, and they drove me to my own jail. They cleared out the jail, booked me in. I was in there about 15 minutes. It was all it took because they didn't want me in there. I bonded out right away, but before I bonded out, even my department released my booking photo to the media. Cop gets arrested for felony drug charges. Now my kids who are already struggling with my shit that I'm bringing home, right? We all think we're protecting them from it by not talking about it. It doesn't work that way. My kids were still suffering from all of my shit, right? We teach them how to be. It got worse for them. The bullying, all that stuff. Your dad's a dirty cop. It was ugly. We ended up losing the house we were building. I lost my job. I lost my identity. I lost almost everything. I came very close to losing my family. And I decided, that's about it, man. I am doing more harm to people that I love by being on this planet than if I just wasn't here. My wife could move on. She could find somebody worthy of her. My kids would be better off if I wasn't screwing up their life continuously. So I drove my ass out in the middle of Wyakin County and was gonna pull the trigger. And thank God before I got to that point of pulling the trigger, I got a phone call from a friend that I hadn't talked to in months. And I don't know why I answered the phone. I don't even know how I had service where I was at. And I can't tell you exactly what he said to me that clicked, but an hour and a half of talking to him on the phone, and I came away out of that conversation with, I had tried everything I could possibly try to get better, to figure out what was wrong with me. Because he pointed out, I'm not the same guy that I used to be. How do I get back there? And I had no idea. What had I tried to do? I hadn't really tried anything. I'd gotten an offer to get into Veterans Treatment Court in Ada County, and I was fighting that because I thought I could beat the charges, right? Ego. Because we want to control everything. And so I finally decided I was gonna put that ego to bed and do everything that they could tell me to do to get better, right? And I'm gonna reach out to somebody else who might have been where I'm at and see what they did. Obviously, addiction and going through rehab didn't work. So I got into Veterans Treatment Court. I was in there for about 20 months. That program, I was able to connect with an entire different group of veterans than my circle, right? Like my circle before that was just cops working on the job. Now my circle was a bunch of veterans who've been out for a while, struggling with PTSD and mental health issues, 90% of them. And most of them went to numbing out with alcohol and drugs, which landed them in some kind of legal trouble. I'm just like all of them, fighting the same freaking demons they are. I started to learn a little bit about how this started for me when I was a little kid. It didn't start in the Marine Corps. It didn't start on patrol. It started when I was a kid. So thank God Veterans Treatment Court got me sober for 2 years and cleared my head up, but it also gave me an opportunity to reach out and connect with other nonprofits that were doing work in mental health space for veterans. The first one I went to was Homework for Heroes in Montana. It was run by a Marine sniper and his wife. And my wife and I went through that one. For 10 days, we trekked across Montana, camping and driving on fire roads. And every night they would have a big bonfire, get together and talk about PTSD and tell their stories. They'd even bust out a big screen TV and play some videos that talked about PTSD, what it is, how it manifests, what your symptoms might look like. And I was baffled that the symptoms that I was experiencing were PTSD, like egotistical, think only of myself, anger outbursts, inability to regulate emotion, impulse control, like it's all complex PTS related. And then after that, I got into Save a Warrior in Ohio. That program turned everything around for me. They taught me exactly why I think the way that I do, how it happened, where it started, and how to change my thinking, and then gave me a community of men to help me get there. That program changed everything for me. And it's run by vets who've been where we're at, right? They know what they're talking about. And it all comes down to hearing their story. and realizing that, yeah, they're exactly like me. Maybe I just do what he did. Save a Warrior changed everything for me. So we started a coffee company, to generate revenue so that we could help guys and gals get to programs like Save a Warrior, the ones that work, the ones that are actually effective in turning it around. Because the reality is, it's our thinking that has to change. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of the ACE test, ACE score, but it's adverse childhood events. It's a list of 10 questions that determines whether or not you had a traumatic childhood. And the crazy statistics are that a majority of civilians have a non-traumatic childhood, but a majority of veterans, first responders, and the prison population all have a traumatic childhood. That's not coincidental. It's the way we think. We run towards danger instead of away from it. We just gotta figure out, like George said, they tell us how to turn it on, they don't tell us how to turn it off, right? So it's organizations like Save a Warrior and Homer for Heroes that taught me how to turn it off and actually reconnect with my wife and kids. And today I can say that I have an amazing relationship with all three of my children. And my wife and I are like newlyweds. We've been married a lot of years. So, I wouldn't change any of it, any of the trials and tribulations that we went through. My arrest was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I thought it was the worst day of my life. It literally was the bottom that I needed to wake up, figure out what's wrong with me and fix it, because it's not just an attitude, like it's everything in my life has changed, everything. I don't deal with adversity the same way that I used to. I don't deal with emotion the same way that I used to. Like, I can have hard conversations with anybody. Somebody told me early on when I started to get into treatment, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because the shit that we gotta talk about to get better is uncomfortable as hell for us. Because we've spent our entire lives avoiding it. And that's the stigma. So our mission with the Zero Dark 30 Foundation and selling coffee is to raise enough money that no veteran or first responder in Idaho has to struggle for funds to get to treatment. We'll cover it. But also reduce the stigma so we can start talking about it. Get it out in the open so we're not losing it anymore. 2 weeks ago we lost 3 first responders in Idaho to suicide in a week. And ain't nobody talking about it. It's disgusting. We gotta take care of us. The VA ain't gonna fix it. The feds ain't gonna fix it. There's no amount of regulation or laws they can pass that are gonna fix it. If anybody's gonna fix it, it's us grabbing onto each other and being like, bro, it's okay to not be okay. I'm there too. And I can tell you that even today, I still struggle. There are days I don't wanna get out of bed. Find a reason to. And I have a community of guys that I can call and talk to help walk me through shit that I never could do before. I don't know that it'll ever go away, but it's a goddamn lot better now than it was before. A lot better. And I'm a lot happier and in a way better place today than I've ever been. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. There's resources out there, there's all kinds of things. I brought a book from Creative Survival. That booklet is full of resources. They're all vetted and they're all here in Idaho, or most of them. If they're not, we'll pay to get you there. But it's all programs that work, run by us, for us. So you want to scuba dive? There's a program that does that. You talk about mental health, take scuba diving. You want to go hunting? There's a program that does that. Like, you think of it, if there's something that you're into, we'll find a program that does that revolves around PTS, and we'll get you there. So thanks for having me. Appreciate it. We need to do